I am Deidré Wallace, a relationship and corporate therapist. The clue is always in the gaze. Point 2. The importance of the gaze, along with a mother's heartbeat and voice, even during adoption. Now, a baby develops a bond with their mother, not only through the umbilical cord, but also through her heartbeat and the particular timbre of her voice. Indeed, the sound of a mother's heartbeat is unique to each mother, similar to that of our fingerprints. The beat of her heart, or indeed her voice, is a very powerful technique for a child to recognize its mother. And whilst a baby is in the womb, a mother develops an almost psychic bond with her baby, allowing her to know exactly what her baby needs even after childbirth. This is why many midwives often reckon that mothers don't really have to read as many books on what her baby will need, because she will instinctively know what her baby will need her to do, because the bond of knowing was created during the gestation period. Indeed, many African countries that have extended or large family communities, you'll see that often a mother may tie her baby to her back, as it's easier to carry a baby if she has to work or walk long distances. So the child can then remain close to the mother and indeed her heart beat in order to create attachment security. However, if the child is not on the mother's back, it's usually looked after by other members of the family, all helping to care for the child. There is even a proverb attributed to the African cultures that says, "It takes a village to raise a child." And in many of these cultures, the child seems to cry less, as it feels safe and held and seen. And this also provides a child with a place in the family, and in turn, it helps the child build confidence and self-awareness. We also now know that if a child gets adopted after birth, we shouldn't assume that a baby won't know the difference between its mother and the adopted mother. Indeed, it will miss the heartbeat or timbre of the mother's voice, maybe her scent, and so on. And as the child grows older, it may not understand why it feels there is something missing or that something isn't quite right. They may not understand why they get angry or feel so sad at times. They may also act this anger and anxiety out with the adopted parents, who may have no clue why the child is being so difficult. It's because on some unconscious, if not conscious level, the adopted child is still grieving its mother, the loss of the mother, loss of the heartbeat. And a child doesn't have the emotional language that we as adults have. A child is often unable or incapable of explaining themselves adequately. And this is why child psychologists often revert to play therapy to help children articulate their emotions so adults can also try to understand them better. However, let's return to my original point that I discussed in video 1, or point 1 anyway, in order to unpack this concept a little further. Now, if the baby eventually realizes it is outside the womb and that it cannot return to the womb, it will also begin to realize that it will never have mummy all to itself ever again. Even if it cries and gets picked up, cuddled and fed, at some point it realizes that it will have to be put down, and again it will have to deal with lying in the cot all on its own and by itself. In other words, even a tiny baby has to realize that intimacy or safety of a mother's arms will come to an end. The baby will have to learn to amuse itself until it falls asleep. Some babies will spend this momentary period of abandonment looking around, gurgling, and possibly playing with its feet or whatever toy might be nearby, until it either starts crying again or falls asleep. This insight, which could be conscious or unconscious, creates a deep understanding that results in an important lesson that intimacy implies abandonment. And once I comprehended this, once I realized this reality, everything else began to fall into place. This was an important clue that explained exactly how we begin to develop emotionally, and that how we deal with the reality of early abandonment, even if initially for short periods, determines our emotional foundation. It teaches us that no matter how close we may be to someone, we cannot keep or hold on to them 24/7. They too have to lead their lives, often separate from us. And as a result, we are forced to learn to cope for certain, if not long periods, on our own. We've all felt that pang when someone we love pulls away, whether it's a partner or a friend or even a family member. Have you? In other words, this is the same ache we felt as babies when we realized we couldn't have our mother to ourselves all the time. In other words, we are encouraged to become independent from our mothers, and as we develop, from our fathers as well. But some children may find this lesson difficult, and how we learn to protect ourselves from this reality becomes part of our emotional makeup too. And sadly, if a child is deserted, rejected, neglected, abandoned, this lesson could create emotional neediness, a deep anxiety or separation anxiety, which could lead to fear of being abandoned, especially if they were left alone for long periods at any given time. And I wonder how this might have affected you and how you dealt with it. And I would therefore encourage you to start a journal. So as I go through the various points, you can jot down how you think or feel my knowledge is helping you understand yourself better. And do subscribe or follow me if you wish to learn more. Thank you.